We had, probably pretty much a novel's plot, trying to cram it into 10 pages. And there just was so much stuff going on, and it was just confused, and it didn't make sense. And on the other hand, I do see at the other extreme, I think there's a lot of 500-page novels out there that have about 300 pages worth of plot. So there's a tendency to pad if you don't have enough. So I think you want to, you want your plot to be commensurate with the amount of time that you're talking, that you're telling the story. So you want to move along smartly. Pacing is something I always harp about, either for movies or books. I see so much stuff that's that if definitely you see this in movies, right? If one action sequence or one chase is good, well then 3 will be 3 times better. And it's like, well, no. After the 1, the interest level seriously drops out. So you really want to work in fast and slow parts to any narrative. You want some parts where people are talking, setting up action. You don't just want to go from one action sequence to another. I think a lot of people think that that's the solution, is just to cram it with as much action as possible. And I suppose one of the things that I harp about is I think it's important as an author, especially for a genre like horror, and especially the subgenre of zombies, is you have to think at some point, or I think you have to think throughout the writing process, is what is this story really about? What am I trying to say with this story? Right? Because I don't think any good story is about, zombies kill people and eat them. I mean, that's what happens in the story, but I don't think that's what it's about. I don't think that's the point you're trying to get across. Right? That's just the action that you're trying to use to convey whatever it is that you think this is about. Right? Is it about mortality? Is it about community? Is it about alienation? Whatever. It's got to be about something, I think, ultimately. And if you can have whatever that, I don't want to say message, because I don't think the story has to necessarily have like a moral to it, but if you can have that effect or that meaning in your mind as you're writing, so that you don't just start spinning out action just to be doing it, I think that helps to guide the story too. That helps to guide the narrative. Now, those are all general storytelling things. There are things that I think are specific to horror too. I think there's a lot of tendency for beginning writers to write stuff that's gross as opposed to scary. I saw so many stories that were just gross. I mean, just describing bodily fluids, coming out of people, right? And I know in the zombie story there's going to be some of that, but again, I don't think it should ever be the focus.
You have a short story collection coming out from Permuted Press, which is what you've been talking about, History is Dead, which is set, it's a collection of zombie stories set in pre-20th century settings. Can you tell us anything about some of the stories that are actually made it into the collection?
I think I can say that the common thread throughout all of them is that there's something different. There's something that you haven't. I obviously haven't read every zombie story out there, but there's something that when I read it, I said, "Oh, I hadn't thought of that." And again, not in the sense of some plot twist or something, but something where the person was trying to tell a story. There's one zombie romance that I just thought was great. There's a bunch of zombie comedies in there that I thought really were funny. As compared to, I got a lot of submissions that were supposed to be funny, but have you ever noticed how it really hard, how almost impossible it is to explain to someone why something isn't funny?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you either get a joke or you don't, and if you don't get a joke, you can't tell the person why you didn't, and they're frustrated, right? Because they want to know why you didn't get it, and they think it's your fault. So the ones that really were laugh out loud, I was very pleased with those. And again, so much with the zombie genre, I think, is rehashed. I mean, I got so many stories that were, people meet zombies, people barricade themselves in a building, zombies attack the building. It's like, well, okay, but hasn't that been done? And it's like, well, yeah, but it's set in ancient Rome. Well, that doesn't make a difference. I mean, the setting really doesn't change that much. You've got the exact same plot of Night of the Living Dead. So the one thing I can say for all the stories is that they do something original. That's what made me excited about it.
So, what would you consider your greatest influence or your greatest influences becoming a writer?
It was gradual, I think, because it's a long story. Back when I was your age, I used to write stories all the time, just constantly, every day. I just write these stories, and I actually stumbled on them a few months ago. I saw this stack of loose leaf paper, and I realized what it was. I was like, wow. And they're all awful. They're all awful teenage stuff. So when I was your age, I did that, and then when I went to college, it almost, like the day I got there, I stopped writing that, and I started reading, just even more than I had in high school. I mean, I always read, but I just really started reading, and not even so much literature necessarily, not things with a narrative. I started reading philosophy and theology, and I really kind of devoted myself to that. And even though, when you ask me what my influence is, even though those aren't the narratives, even though that's not what I write like, obviously, it seemed like those ideas or those kinds of analyses were what I sort of craved and what I was interested in for years there. And they did sort of provide the ideas and the raw material now that I'm finally going back to writing fiction and weaving that in. So, I mean, when you ask about influences, I would be just as likely to say St. Augustine or Dante as I would a modern storyteller, because I think they gave me the kind of theological vocabulary to put under a narrative.
What made you decide to what made What made you decide to write Gospel of the Living Dead with its unique take on Romero's movies?
That was part of the process, I guess, and that's did provide sort of a segue into writing fiction. Although it is funny, chronologically, Romero was missing for years. I guess he made a couple things in between there that didn't do anything. But certainly between Day of the Dead and Land of the Dead, he wasn't